So hello everyone, and welcome to the launch of our study, Startups and Generative AI. I always have to look up the subtitle, Entering a New Era. That's what the study is called. And my name is Alexander Hirschfeld. I'm head of research at the German Startups Association, and I'm proud and very happy to present this new study together with our partner, Hubraum, tech incubator of the Deutsche Telekom. And as always, we enjoyed very much working with you guys. And also a big thank you to Merantix, very warm welcome. I think this is a great location, probably you all agree. And I also think the perfect spot to present this study, to launch it. And before we start, one housekeeping item. At the end of this panel, we are going to have a Q&A. So if you have any questions, just take a mental note basically and get to us after the panel, ask your question. We'll probably not be able to address every question, but afterwards just shoot us an email. We're very responsive and you definitely get an answer. So let's get started and dive first of all into our panel and present the people that are going to discuss the results with me today. And now we should change the slide. So I just keep on talking. First of all, we have Hamid Kedabda, who is AI lead at Deutsche Telekom and also, as I heard, a lecturer giving lectures in GenAI, which is very nice and very interesting. Then we have with us Nicole Büttner. Nicole is founder and CEO of Merantix Momentum and also, of course, a board member of the German Startups Association. So great to have you here, Nicole. Next in line is Axel Menneken, who is director at Hubraum, tech incubator of Deutsche Telekom. And last but not least, Annika from Mutius. Annika is our founder today from Empion, HR startup, co-founder and also co-CEO, and nice having you here today. Yeah. So that was our panel, that we're going to discuss the results today. And now let's dive into the results. Let's dive into the data. And probably should have the slides. Oh, I have to click. It's too much stuff I have to hold in my hand. I think now I get it going. So first of all, what we see here is not nice. It's not what we used to in the startup ecosystem. Numbers have going down for the last 2 years concerning newly founded startups. I mean, we all know why: economic downturn, high interest rates, conflicts everywhere, basically. At least that's how it feels. And that also has an impact on the startup ecosystem. And we see that the number of newly founded startups is going down. And now that I realize that I have to use this clicker, I just do it. And we see that concerning generative AI, the trend goes in the opposite direction. When we look at GenAI, we don't have this decrease in newly founded startups, but instead we have a strong increase. In 2022, we had a certain decrease, but 2023, we have a huge increase. And this is mainly due to the GenAI boom that we are going to talk about today. So you all know what happened in late 2022. ChatGPT launched and basically changed a lot. And what it mainly changed, I'm going to discuss with our panel. And first of all, Annika, I want to turn to you and kind of give our audience the founder's perspective. So how do you perceive kind of the atmosphere in the ecosystem at the moment, the vibe when it comes to founding a new startup and especially founding an AI startup?
So I think generally founding a startup, we are now 2 years old, and I think the life has been quite good to us. So we've been growing in the past years to also now a group of 40 wonderful team members. And I very much enjoy the time growing. We see that also in many other companies. But when comparing it to also my time before, when I used to work in Silicon Valley, I see that our perception is that money is spent a little bit more efficiently. So there are less resources, and you are a little bit more asked to look for strong unit economics for spending the money. And now if you ask for like the AI world, I just saw actually a little bit funny sentence which said only 15% of the startups pretending to do AI actually do AI, which is, I think, funny. But the truth is, I think that we have here a huge difference between the startups that are applying AI, that use pre-trained models, and the ones that do really the basic research. And I think the interesting point here is that the pre-trained models enable also non-tech founders to actually build AI and to work on AI. And this is something that impresses me a lot, because in the end of the day, this ensures that we use and make, apparently, and I see that because I have a mathematician background, I know what it means to have useless models in the world. But it's all about the usability of AI systems. And I see that from client side, I see that from venture capital side, that it's all about making use of meaningless AI. And this is cool. And it's just great to be part of this movement.
Mm-hmm. So definitely opportunity that is out there, but also like in general the crisis, making things more efficient. Turning to you, Nicole, I mean, you do a lot of different things at Merantix, and we talk about some of the other aspects later on. But first of all, you also work with startups, you also invest in startups. How do you see the current development? How is your perception? Are you kind of flooded with new use cases and applications, or what's going on?
Well, thanks all of you for coming, and thanks for doing this presentation of the GenAI study here. Very excited to have you all here on the campus. So, I mean, obviously we feel really good about being in the AI space for a few more years, right? It's not like we did sort of another technology right now and switched 6 months ago. So I think this feeling of, yes, AI is actually changing industries and businesses in a meaningful way, like, you know, software, it feels like a more fundamental technological shift, sort of. I think that's really also reassuring when you've had this hypothesis for a while. But I mean, we're also really excited. As you said, there are a lot of people experimenting with it, and I think what you said, Annika, is totally right. The barrier is kind of lowered, right, through these foundation models, so you can imagine more applications. You lower the barrier for more users, which is great, not only for startups, also for corporates. So, and this means different things, right? This means you obviously also get a lot of startups where you have the feeling, okay, you kind of locked yourself in a dorm room for a weekend and made an API call to ChatGPT, and now, you know, maybe this is a company, maybe not. So I have the feeling we're thinking a lot about, we're very excited to get experts from other fields excited in this, also something we like as investors, sort of, we like to call the dual PhD problem, to have like deep industry experts and domain experts interact with AI and use this as their solution space. But yeah, I mean, then the question is, you know, if you're building a fun application, that's one thing. But if you want to build sustainably a business that you can actually monetize, right, make some money, pay your employees long term, and so on, then you need to think about defensibility, about mode. What is it you're gonna be able to do that others cannot also do over a weekend in the dorm room with an API call? And so we like a lot of these very industry-specific niches, end-to-end, deeply integrated applications, and I would say it often has sort of one component of the outcome matters. So, right, you have some of these applications where, you know, I'm generating a new LinkedIn, let's say, profile picture of myself, and that's nice. If I don't like it, I just take another one, or I don't take one at all. But a lot of the industries where we're traditionally strong, or things like a field like you're working in, Annika, which are the outcome matters. You have to get it right at some level. It can't just be like 80% something, but at some point it has to be, I think, manufacturing, all these topics. So outcomes matter, and I think as a startup, that's why we believe in these vertically integrated applications, because you can actually create a mode through data and expertise and tying sort of a generated outcome to a real outcome and sort of learning and making that loop really defensible. Yeah.
Yeah, great, Nicole, great input. The result matters, and it has to be like not 80% but 95%. What are you saying, Axel, in your perspective, your experience at Hubrom? You have worked with so many startups. What has changed the last 1 or 2 years? How do you perceive the current development? What's going on, and what do you think is most exciting?
First of all, I fully agree with the both. This is a complete new shampoo, and lots of opportunities. However, I have to say, I never experienced such a game-changing new technology where large corporates have been so fast in adapting. So if you look at Microsoft, but also what others like Amazon, Google are doing, they really are going so fast and so all in. And I have not seen this in other technologies where like startups usually had like 2 years or so like doing their stuff and building kind of like a way, getting into the market, building some first moats around their businesses, their ideas. This time it's different. Yeah. So in that sense, on one hand, of course, huge opportunity, especially when it comes to the vertical applications, bringing together the speed and agility and creativity of startups with the data and the industry knowledge sitting in the corporates. But on the other hand, I have the feeling like Microsoft is sometimes acting like a startups with OpenAI, yeah? And that is what I think is different and needs to be taken into account.
Yeah, great. I mean, what you're saying, even corporates are going all in, startups anyway. That brings me to you. What would you say, being kind of a technical expert here in this round? I mean, we're all technical experts, but you probably like the most of it. What has changed? I mean, what wasn't possible, I'd say, 5 years ago? What is possible now? What has changed on the technological side so that these changes came about and we have the surge in new startups and corporates really going all in?
Well, nothing fundamentally, but also everything has changed in the same time. So I think the whole story started with artificial neural networks back 20 years ago. Then we had deep learning, which was like artificial neural networks getting deeper and more complex, modeling more complex patterns and responding in a more complex way. And then we had researchers looking into ways to make these deep neural networks more specialized, so for certain tasks. One of them was sequence modeling or language modeling. So in 2017, 2018, we had people from Google inventing transformer models. And it turned out to be really good in transforming one sequence to the other sequence. Could be a question transformed to an answer, or it could be also translation or text converted to images and vice versa. And I remember 2019, we had the first open source models based on transformer architecture, and they really worked so well in basic NLP tasks, so semantic analysis, topic modeling, and stuff like that, which was solved before, but in a fluffy way, wasn't anymore a problem anymore. So we had industry-grade solutions in 2019 based on transformer models. And I think OpenAI and the rest of companies got interested in it, started investing big in terms of talents, computational resources, money, and also data. I would say really high-quality data. Then we had GPT-1 and 2. Probably nobody remembers them anymore, but they were smart enough to surprise many. And thereafter, I think you all witnessed the game, basically. It ramped up to ChatGPT, and now everybody talks about it.
Yeah, thank you, Hamad, for showing us that it was more like continuous development than most of us imagined, who just realized what happened like in late 2022. Yeah,
exactly. It wasn't really one moment, but it was one moment, but we all noticed that.
Yeah.
And I guess the name AI was coined in the 50s, so it's really like a long travel.
Yeah, definitely. But now it really is ramping up. And what we did in our study is ask our founders if they use and how they use GenAI tools. And we see many of them are using it. Like 29% say we use tools like ChatGPT. I think it was 76% who say we use it regularly, and many of them even integrate it in the processes. And the focus, of course, which is understandable, very much marketing, so content creation, still the biggest and most important field. But behind that, you also see product and IT, which really shows that there's a lot out there, a lot possible, and the technical part, coding, is becoming more and more important concerning GenAI. And what we also wanted to know from our founders is what's changing, basically. So we asked them and gave them an open-end question, and then we looked into it. Of course, we also asked GenAI to take a look into it to make it a bit easier for us. But what we basically got were two answers. The first answer was automation. Things that normally you had to do manually, many things that cost a lot of time are now possible to a decent quality, a 95% quality, and that saves you a lot of time. Automation, a very important aspect. And the other aspect, very closely related to it, fundamental changes in the way we are working, and I guess that this is just the start and just starting. And that is why we are focusing on this topic, the change of work. Again, I want to start with you, Annika. I think this is the perfect fit because you are founder of an HR startup, and who knows better than you how our work life is changing and what's going on at the moment. So what is your perception? What is becoming more important skill-wise? What do people need to know now in the next years when it comes to GenAI?
I mean, I think generative AI is something that could be a little bit perceived as maybe the interface to AI systems because it gets so close to applicability, it gets so close to really making use of the very strong systems that we have. I just remember I went to my mother's 60th birthday and my grandmother was there and she told me she just used ChatGPT, and I was so excited about that I was really my grandmother doing this. And I think this shows how much we now through GenAI are capable of really using those tools in a wider way possible. And I think what we see now and what becomes way more important is you could maybe easily say that human become a little bit more the human in the loop. Yeah, you have to learn how to be the interaction with the AI system. You have to become the best possible human as the human in the loop with the AI. So really being fully aware of the fact how AI scales. And I think that's probably a skill that becomes tremendously important and that should be important. And besides, of course, we see that that's something that points like creativity, critical thinking is something that should somehow replace the things that we've been doing before. A further thing we've been seeing a lot also in our research is that it becomes more and more important to establish structures in companies, because the better decision-making processes are established, the better an AI system will be capable of replacing them. That means structures and clear decision-making processes are something that will always help AI systems to perform better and to be applied in organization in the best way possible.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Annika. And probably expanding on that, Hamed, what would you say are kind of job descriptions or people or jobs that haven't been out there like 2 or 3 years ago that are now starting to pop up due to GenAI? I mean, we all heard about it, but you can probably give us some more detail on what's out there and what probably will be out there in the upcoming years. Yeah?
Well, first of all, I agree very much with Annika. There will be all of us, no matter which profession we do, we have to get ourselves enabled with the so-called prompt engineering, so the language to instruct GenAI to support us and make what we want be done. That's, I think, applicable to everyone. And related to that, I expect some AI instructor kind of jobs helping individual with prompt engineering and the process of learning prompt engineering. Because if you tweak a little bit prompt engineering, you see it's not as trivial as they advertise it. So there are tricks to do it better and worse. And it needs some lecturing and education as well. On top, I guess we will have jobs like consultancy related to integration of AI in larger or medium-sized enterprises. And some jobs related to ethics, regulation, and all legislatory aspects of generative AI. So basically monitoring if generative AI does it properly or not, like a police for generative AI, if you like. And what I have heard also recently, there will be a job called AI or GenAI psychologist. Because some people believe the behavior of those models is already so complex or will get so complex that it's not AI experts understanding what's happening to debug and fix it. There should be a psychologist taking the model as a personality and study it over time in order to suggest changes or suggest debugging or making it better or worse. That's what I can say for now. I think it's so difficult to forecast what happens after 2 to 5 years in this field. So let's stay there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Shaman. I mean, the AI psychologist was a new one for me. That's pretty exciting, yeah.
And I can definitely send you the paper afterwards, but it's really justifying, that role in the market. Yeah.
Nice. So next topic. I think one very important aspect, of course, startups use GenAI. They build new technologies and use cases. And with that, they're also important for kind of digitalizing our whole economy. And in this regard, I think it's very interesting that GenAI startups have an even stronger B2B focus than startups already have. Normally, startups are around like 70% B2B, and GenAI startups are about 93% B2B. And I think this is a very important aspect, something that you need to consider when talking about them, and also when thinking about where do they get their customers from, and how do they scale, and how do they develop over time. And that brings us to the next slide. Axel, you already told us that corporate big companies are going all in. We talked about Microsoft and stuff like that. But at the same time, when we look at different surveys asking established companies, like a broad range of established companies, how important GenAI is for them and if it's part of their tech stack, there's only a very small number saying, yes, GenAI is already part of our tech stack, a little more saying that we are planned to implement it in the near future. And I think this is very interesting, important, and also kind of alarming for the startups as well as for the established companies, especially in Germany. And at the same time, we ask our startups, how do you feel about established companies? And 65% are saying that these companies we talk to, we work with, are very reluctant when it comes to new technologies. And this brings me to my question round, this time again, including all of you guys. And I know this is kind of unfair, but I want to start with Hubraum Telekom for more of the corporate perspective, so to speak. And I wanted to start with you, Axel. I mean, why are you guys, or why are the corporates, why are big companies and also established businesses so reluctant? I know that telecom is not just,
Yeah, I think we should differentiate. I guess that the large corporates are pretty advanced, not very advanced, but pretty advanced in comparison to small and medium enterprises. And first of all, I think it's really hard, and it needs a lot of resources, capital, and talent to get into this play. And so first you have to think about and establish your, let me say, infrastructure layer. And there is still a lot of discussion, rightfully a discussion also, let me say, in the German Mittelstand. Should I have my data on-premise, or should I go on cloud services? Yeah? So these are like very basic questions that are still in the making, still in the solving, before then thinking about what is my data strategy? And if I have good data, how can I really start to identify patterns, which are the right algorithms, which are the right foundation models, or even should I think about a vertical, specially trained model? Yeah. It is not like, oh, there's now GenAI and everything is solved. It starts much earlier with basic digitization questions. Here it's kind of like the same picture as we have in the general, where is Germany in digitization picture. And that is the reason why especially I think the smaller and medium-sized companies also due to like lacking knowledge and resources, are behind, whilst I think some the large corporates are much more advanced and invest also much more into the topic. But maybe you add to it, yeah?
Agree. I'm positively surprised, how large enterprises acting fast this time. I remember last year around this time, I was messaging our management and trying to motivate them to move forward. And these days, they message me so much that I really hope I don't get GenAI related questions or messages anymore. Like, of course, there's a new model release, 5.3 release, and so on. So actually, in telecom, and not only telecom, a few other enterprises I'm connected through friends, I know they are very much interested and moving very fast forward, because they have noticed that it's not only a chatbot solution machine, what we talk about. This is something that goes beyond that. It has reasoning capabilities. It can contribute to strategic decisioning. These days, we are talking about the so-called operating system of intelligence, which means that the whole company runs with the support of GenAI, not only customer service and things like that. But coming back to your question, why they could be reluctant, I think it's a question of data privacy and security. It's like being worried about inappropriate content generated by GenAI and things like that. And the solution is communication and education. There's a high risk, of course, in any new technology, and this one is the smartest technology we already we ever had, and we are trying to integrate. But there's also a lot of opportunities and advantages. So we should really act as counselors for the enterprises, explaining, look, there's always a risk. And even if you wait 2 years, there are bigger risks. Maybe you act, and in the meantime, we minimize risk. Last word on that, last year around this time, I think that the so-called hallucination rate of those large language models were around 30 to 40%. And today, when we talk about it, it's 5 to 2%, 2 to 5%. So the risks are decreasing very fast by time.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Hamid. And Nicole, turning to you, Hamid already touched upon that. How can companies like Merantix and also startups help established companies to kind of overcome their reluctance? How can they make it for them easier, or make it feel easier to apply new technologies like GenAI?
I mean, this sounds very much like a feel-good panel. I mean, are we really happy, sir, with 3% of established companies say this is part of the tech stack? I would say the ambition level has to be like way higher, like at a 0 or something. That would make me impressed. I would say I disagree. I don't think it's actually that deep in most people's tech stack. The numbers apparently confirm this. And even when you look at traditional AI, right, the numbers are also, and that has been along for much longer, and the numbers are still disastrous, actually. And this is something I obviously also don't like, heavy regulation that makes people, let's say, more focused on risks, not because it's not right that we should regulate this. This is a technology that touches all of us, so don't get me wrong, it's not the Wild West, but we're so focused on all the risks that we sometimes forget the opportunities. I think that's one thing. I think secondly, people are overwhelmed. Look at the X feed when you look just at what's new in the field. I mean, it's very hard to keep up to speed. And I mean, you now obviously have a great tech team around Hamid, and some companies are fortunate enough. Others are just, they have no clue. They're overwhelmed. I mean, they're basically, you need to make a strategy, but I'm already just struggling to keep up with the news flow. Like, yeah, that's a huge issue. And then there are other aspects like, we're just structurally investing too little, and this is not the government, this is actually the economy and the companies investing too little money. There's just been a recent IFO study together with Bocconi University that structurally in Europe and in Germany, companies just invest too little in innovation, and let's say GenAI is part of that. I think there are many things. I think let's start to this, go how we are part of the solution, just after my little rant here. I think, what we're trying to build here with the AI Campus is basically an ecosystem. So to provide a space where we can all gather around these topics, exchange, understand what are our strong points and what are just blind spots. And I mean, my team, they're working on AI the whole day, and we can't do everything. There are some things where you're just like, yeah, I mean, fortunately enough, there are all these other amazing people. We just give them a call. So I think ecosystem and ecosystem innovation will have to become a pillar for everybody. Everybody who thinks they can figure it out by themselves is just wrong. So you need to find these spaces, and there are many others, right? Like in other geographies, to connect with academia, to connect with startups and sort of the young speedboats who are building these new ideas. Otherwise, you're just dead in the water. I think a second point is that you can that you mentioned is sort of this. I like what you said about the human in the loop systems, right? I think that's something, because there's a lot of fear and resistance to change. I mean, we all have this. Basically, it's very human. And I think that is really something that you can see with really good UI and UX that can help gradually sort of put these systems into place and deploy them, let's say, a little smoother in a way that also experts want to contribute, want to use these tools. And I think UX is going to be like a very, very big part of this. Also, yeah, to mitigate risk, but also for bigger adoption and faster adoption.
Meeting the right people at events like this one, and also having a good UX, develop the software, the programs further. I know, Annika, it's always tough to be last, but I mean, from a founder's perspective, I mean, how do you approach your partners? How do you kind of convince them? Are there any secret strategies? I mean, there are probably some founders out there that you want to share.
So first of all, the very funny thing is we just signed the contract with Telecom yesterday, which is just now. This is a coincidence, but it's really funny. But besides, I really have to kind of agree with Nicole, because there are not. It's not the typical case that, especially enterprise sales, goes that quickly. What we've seen is that, by the way, we just published a paper on the 4 levels AI in recruiting, because this is our space, and we see there that we have in the application level, we are still very much between level 0 and 1, which is at the very beginning. However, I think to also be there a little bit positive, what we also see, and this is pretty cool, that we adapted, especially now when it got to the AI Act, very quickly with respect to the legal side, but also a rather personal side. And what we did on the legal side was directly when, like in Q4, I think last year, we got detailed information about how the AI Act will look like. We directly got into our discussion with our attorneys, planned already what will be adapted in our data protection policies, and actually changed that now when the AI Act was final within, I think, 3 weeks or something. And the funny thing of it was that we were actually working together with the customers that were in our sales process. And that was something that was super cool, because they were not reluctant, they were super positive, they were apparently asking. So that was what they did. But then we were actually working together with the purchasing, with the legal departments of some enterprise customers, such as, I think, for instance, Procter & Gamble was really supportive there. And we were simply working together on implementing the new rules to our data protection policies, and it was done within 3 weeks. I'm not saying it's an easy way. It was a lot of work, and it cost us a lot of money, but at least it was done to the state of the art that we have today. Let's take it that way. It could, of course, change in the future. The other point is, and I think there also I very much relate with what Nicole said, is that we try to be as transparent as possible with our clients, and it does not matter what size of company. We try to communicate as clear as possible. We are a young company, not everything is perfect. Yeah, we even developed, I think, our security concept together with our first bank client. Yeah, so we are super open about also what we cannot do in a great way yet, but we try to be honest and open. Try to answer questions that people have and what we see, and this is how I would like to end positive here in all of those regulation things, that most of our clients, and this not only correlates to enterprise customers, especially also very conservative, medium-sized companies, family businesses, banks, and all of that, where you wouldn't expect it, are super open for innovation. They just sometimes need a little bit of a push, and they are super interested, and by the way, super open for exchange and also helping the startups to go forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great advice. I mean, be open, be transparent, and tell the people out there we don't have the 100% solution, but we work together with you to create it.
Yeah, but it still doesn't prevent you from putting money into your attorneys.
It takes time, it takes money, and that's a disadvantage internationally, but we come to that. Okay, but first, let's talk about funding. I mean, it's pretty much the same story that we had at the very beginning. We saw that the number of newly founded startups decreased in 2022 and also in 2023. And we see an even bigger decline when it comes to funding. I mean, 2021 was the record year in Germany, but also worldwide. And since then, funding has been going down. Opposite, again, the case for GenAI, of course. We have this huge peak in funding in 2023, which is really incredible what's going on there. And in our survey that we did, this is also kind of translated in the vibe in the startup ecosystem. We asked GenAI startups or GenAI-focused startups and the rest of the startups, what are you aiming for? What exit value do you want to create? And 20% of the startups with GenAI focus were saying, we want to become a unicorn, and only 3% of the rest of the startups. And I think that speaks for itself, kind of. Again, I want to turn to my panel this time, Nicole and Axel, because we don't have that much time to include the whole round this time. I mean, I just ask you as funding experts, and I want to know why does Huge invest in GenAI, despite the fact that everyone has to save money, cut costs? Why does Huge invest? Is it worth it? And how do you kind of perceive the situation at the moment? I don't know, Nicole. You probably want to start.
I think that's maybe part of the reason why they invest. So I think a lot of people who contact us, it's either about productivity. So there's a lot of labor shortage going on, right? So knowledge workers in the various domains are actually cannot be found, quite frankly. So people are pushing themselves even harder on innovation to gain productivity out of the assets that they have and out of the production sites or office sites or businesses that they run. I think that's one aspect. I think the second one is there are new business models. I mean, now basically we've tapped in the last 10, 20 years when we talked about AI tools, we kind of tapped into a limited percentage of the value chain, but now the promise of GenAI is basically tap into the remaining 90, 95% of that, right? And add and create more and so on. So I think, I'm happy that there's some FOMO going on because I quite frankly feel there are a lot of domains where, especially German Europe stands hugely to gain and to really create the next sector and category leaders. And I feel, I think that's only reasonable. If you want to future-proof your business model, you should be thinking about how this technology will affect your industry and your business model mid to long term in a fundamental way. And I guess in the short term, it's about productivity and staying competitive, right? If you kind of think of a Maslow pyramid of like deficit needs, this is what I have to do not to die, and then this is what I need to do to be really happy and self-actualize. Companies are hopefully thinking about that.
Yeah, investors are focused on the future, and investors love large growing markets. And that is exactly what's happening with GenAI. It's an exploding market. Yeah? All the studies tell us that there's like huge multi-billion either productivity gains, but more and more also like new business revenue opportunities. And you want to be part of it. Besides the fact, like with each of these like waves, also FOMO is a part of it. So you want to be part of the ride, and but in the end, it's like about like a large, growing, transformative market. And if these models and if these use cases, applications mature more, they will be applicable not only in certain verticals, but applicable across industries, which is another accelerator and makes it even more attractive, and that's the reason why investors jumping on it. However, we also need to consider that there have been like some super massive rounds. If you look what went into OpenAI, if you look what went also here in Aleph Alpha and the other big guys working on the foundation models. So there's a bit of a bias also, like a huge portion goes to like a very few deals, but still it's a huge growing market, and that's super attractive for investors.
Yeah. Thank you, Axel. Thank you, Nicole. And as you said, Axel, you want to be part of it, or I'd say we want to be part of it. Companies want to be part of it, and as a nation, as Germany, as Europe, you should be part of it. Here comes the bad news. We are not that much part of it. 12 times more money per capita is invested in GenAI startups in the US compared to Germany. And on the right side, you see the big funding rounds, Axel, you were just talking about. And if we go a couple of years back, we would see there a lot of mobility, we would see a lot of fintech and delivery. I mean, we still see a fintech, then we have Northvolt Energy, but the rest of it is basically GenAI. And I think this underlies what you were just saying. You want to be part of it. There's a lot going on. And also what you touched upon, Nicole, we are not that much part of it at the moment. So the question is, why is that? It's not just because of the EU AI Act, even though we have it here on the slide. But we asked our founders out there, how do you stand concerning the EU AI Act? And on the one hand, you could say it's kind of a mixed picture. If you are like, if you want to see it that way, you still see that trust in AI, legal certainty is important for about half of the founders we asked. But at the same time, what you also see is that the negative side, inhibiting innovation, a competitive disadvantage, something we also talked about already, the numbers there are much bigger. So the founders, I mean, now it's out there, but I think it's very important that now it's out there, we really take care of how it's going to be implemented, how much time and money it's going to cost, especially small companies that have a tough time affording it, basically. And also what we did was ask our founders, where do we stand, kind of the discussion we are having at the moment. We see that there are some optimists, but not many. So Europe is out front, and Europe is going to win the AI race. It's like 4 or 5%, but they see the picture quite clearly. The US is up front, and Europe is lagging behind. And I think what we have to do, like as a startup association, as companies investing in Germany, but also when we think about the Merantix AI Campus, is really get this bubble, the 48, the 18% from the far left really to the right. And since time is running out, this is going to be a last question round, the toughest one, and like a very general question. So, I mean, where do we go from here? What do we have to do basically to make Germany and also Europe really a GenAI champion? What has to change in the next couple of years? And I'll just start probably on the right-hand side with you, Hamid.
Sure.
What are you saying?
That's a very good question, and seeing these figures, it looks really scary, but I would answer it in twofold. We have to work on knowledge, on education and communication for those people who make politics at top or invest billions of euros. I have a feeling that they haven't got the point, that it is not a cool gadget invented, it's not a talking parrot, it is basically an artificial brain that can get smarter and smarter and smarter and contribute to, let's say, strategic decisions at the time of peace and at the time of war. So this means that if Europe doesn't move, it's not going to be, the consequence is not going to be not having enough chatbots or automation. The consequence would be lagging behind in terms of general smartness, reasoning, and decision making, which is really, really bad. So they have to get this point, and then I think they invest more in it. It's not really a talking parrot, it's intelligent machine. And let's say they don't get the point and we don't get money. then I think we can bet on creativity. Not everything is about money. One way we can solve the problem is going for the next big thing in GenAI. So these are still early days or ages of GenAI, and everybody is doing marketing, customer service, chatbots, content creation, and so on. So everybody is trying to do what we have been doing with AI, and we failed now with GenAI. Maybe that next big thing is not really these things. Maybe it's something else. And I don't know what is that. But when people invented internet, everybody was making a website, you know, and that was internet. Until somebody smart started, you know, retail and online market in internet, and people found out that, oh, this is a bigger market. So we have to find out that, and why Europe is going to be a good place to do that. Creativity is connected with diversity and with freedom of speech, and the fact that people are grown in a lesser hierarchical society as compared to the rest of the world. So those people have higher chance to sit together, add from their diverse background, and come up with something very creative that suddenly makes that 4% like 400%. Let's hope for that.
Yeah, thank you. I like the positive note at the end, the creativity and yeah.
I actually just looked at a statistic because there's one that Stanford published about 2 weeks ago where Europe comes in second, so there is light at the end of the tunnel. So meaningful contributions to AI models, 61 in the US, that's what I was just looking up on my phone. For the numbers, 21 from Europe, 15 from China, so robbing forward. I would say that's probably one of the strengths, actually conceptually. We do have a lot of very strong research, and we should build on those strengths, and I would wish, and I think one way forward is that we come up with a more strategic way to invest into the different innovations, right? When you look at all the possible technologies you can invest in, from GenAI to quantum to space to, you know, everything, I have the feeling we're not as strategic as maybe companies, as a country and as a continent as a whole, to really say those are the areas where we think we can have a competitive advantage, and we're going to go heavy and bold into those. That's one aspect. I really like the aspects that you mentioned, of course, and I think that's one part to kind of unleash some funding and also build on just traditional strengths that you outlined in the B2B in some sectors, because these GenAI models, they will need data, and that's what you see big tech providers doing right now, trying to approach a lot of companies and, let's say, private data pools, right, behind paywalls or behind company modes to basically say, hey, can we incorporate your data? And it's obviously all of our decision whether we do this or whether we support startups with this data or build, co-create as enterprises. But I think that's actually a really strong resource we have, and I really think it's a very big opportunity for Europe and Germany.
So university spin-off, very important, and education, and also like the data we have in the established companies. Yeah, that's a nice one. Yeah, excellent.
So I'm always positive, so I see 3 things. One is Europe always had a super strong research and talent pool. Unfortunately, those talents went somewhere else than to build the commercial applications. If we can turn this, then that's number one. Number 2, to me, I think we are in super early days. And even if I think of data, yeah, currently what these models do, so in my naiveness, you are the model expert, but basically it's for me about text. Yeah. But there's so much more information, for example, in images, in pictures. Yeah. So if you can bring this to a next level, there's so much more data, yeah, that can be used, looking at people doing stuff, learning from that, applying this to robots or whatever. So, but this whole area has not been done, and this is so much more data that we have today. So we are like at the very, very early beginning, so the race is open. Yeah? And the third thing is, I think it's really about an operating system. And it's a do or die thing. And the companies, the large companies, the mid-sized companies, the small companies, who not embrace that, yeah, will simply vanish, will go away. So there is no other option than going all in And I feel that this burning platform is heating up more and more, this pressure makes me positive that a lot will happen and accelerate it.
Yeah, cool. So we are at the very beginning. The time is now, and there's no other way. Yeah. What are you saying, Annika?
I mean, there was a lot said already. I tried to add maybe a little bit on the mindset point, because what is most important now, also from our entrepreneurial perspective, is to make sure to be present and to be capable of showing what we need. That could be concrete, going to politics. I think that's what we do already a lot. Yeah, making sure that politics understands our problems with regulations, to really make sure that, for instance, the government, the German government, understands what happens if we are regulated, our sales cycles are extended, and then we have limited growth. And this is something that occurs then to the entire economy. And I think from that perspective, we need to be way more, courageous in the future. Then the other thing, and I think this is something that we love to do already a lot, is to just take away the worries about applying the systems, which could be, for instance, press work, talking about successful cases, how medium-sized companies actually apply AI, are successful with that already, and how easy it could be. And those are points that I think that we need to change, where we need to be a little more active, I think. And because I think there could be such a wonderful, very positive future, and we should be all excited about this.
Yeah, thank you, Annika. So you're saying that innovation is also about storytelling, and it's, as Nicole also said, a lot about politics, especially concerning GenAI at the moment. So thank you very much. We are already, I think we have now 7 or 8 minutes left. So now we would open up for questions. So if there are any questions out there, we'll be happy to take as many as we can now. Yes, and someone there with a microphone, or should I just hand mine?
First, thank you so much for the panel discussion, very interesting. I have a question, Axel. I think you mentioned that you've been surprised by how fast corporates are moving in this space, and working in this industry, I really feel it. So if we talk about the cake that's available for, people to benefit from this new technology, it feels like foundation models takes a big horizontal slice, but also some of these corporates are now taking big vertical chunks of this cake as they move quickly, like Slack AI was released last week. So my question is, where exist the moats for startups in this space? Where are there space for people to come in and disrupt this industry?
Look, if you want to go in a market as a startup, you somehow need to have this wedge, this inroad into a market where you can build a customer base, where you can build data, where you can build something that is unique and defendable. And these are the inroads, I would say, for AI startups. So, of course, taking aside the foundation model startups, things like what we see now is a lot of combinations between hardware, maybe in well-being or medical, or things like productivity or communication, like Humane and Rabbit, where startups are looking to build their unique set of customer and data that is defendable, whereas then the other category is this enabler technologies building on the data that the corporates or the companies already have. But if you really want to be this standalone success case, I think you need to find this in the first step this unique model, and this is incredibly hard.
Okay, thank you. I think there was a question. Oh, the next one, yeah. Sorry.
I think he was first, but I have a question to Hamid. Is there any change going to be in the developing of this transformer models you said? Do we stay now like this, that OpenAI is dominating the knowledge because they have the biggest database, or is it a very flexible system and it will change? Or will it stay, like you said, HTML for the next 30 years?
That's a very good question. Luckily not. So it's not going to be staying only in the hands of OpenAI for two reasons. One reason is that there are other big players that are also coming more and more into the game, all the way from Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, and so on. So they have their own research teams which are building their own models, which is kind of comparable with OpenAI. You know, if you go to the competition and real numbers, they are still not as good, but the reality is that they are really, really close. Also, we have the open source development, which is, you know, newer, but it's very promising. These days, we see that you can get a smaller model and fine-tune it so that it performs as good as the larger model from OpenAI for a certain domain task. So you don't need to really always trust OpenAI. You can do your in-house development without necessarily lots of GPUs and computational software. At the beginning, one year ago, it looked like it's only OpenAI, but nowadays it's completely changing.
Yeah, it's more a question to Startup Verband. So could you quantify their investment target and the sectors where you're waiting and what you want to invest, or like what is the strategy to close the gap you showed in the beginning of the presentation?
Can you probably say it again? I only got half of it.
So in the beginning you've been showing the gaps, so in the founding of the
Founding
startups.
of the startups, yeah.
Yes. So what is the investment target in the terms of like sectors? In what kind of sectors are you waiting for?
Is it going down basically in what sectors or?
No, the sectors like construction sector, food, energy. You know, what is the investment target of the startups which are going to close this founding gap?
I hope I got it correctly. I mean, we see GenAI is going up, and we see other sectors are going down. And of course, it's sectors like mobility, it's sectors like e-commerce, but it's also at the moment sectors which are very relevant, like sustainability, for example, that are taking a hit. So we have basically in most of the sectors decreasing numbers of newly found startups and also decreasing investments, even in sectors as important as sustainability. And we only see an increase in AI, and also when you look at business models in software as a service. That's the two areas where we really see a steady increase at the moment. I think this relates to what Nicole said, the aspect of productivity, of automation. So investments go where you see and realize that we can have an economic benefit very early. Yeah. I hope otherwise we cover it afterwards.
Yeah, and otherwise I understand it like this. There's like, if you take the benchmark US, yeah, there's a multiplier gap, yeah, that we need to close, yeah, and it's not so specific about like the individual sectors. I don't think we have the numbers for that, yeah, but the sheer difference of factor 12, yeah, tells a thing, yeah. It tells simply that there's much too less money, especially in the late stage, in this market.
Yeah. Huge investment rounds are missing in Germany, and this is not only a problem in the last 2 years, but also in the years before. I mean, even in the record year 21, you had this huge gap compared to the US. It was like 6 or 7 times more money per capita spent in the US throughout the sectors. Yeah. So thanks, Axel, for getting the question correct.
I have a question about education. To Hamed, the universities are full of young people, hungry people, curious people. Are they still there and not in developing already in startups? What are the opportunities, possibilities for universities to contribute to close this gap in the AI-related skills, develop the skills so they are prepared and full of energy, trying to conquer the world of GenAI and make a difference? What opportunities do you see?
I think there are twofold opportunities. One is education on AI itself has to reform very fast. So normally, I also lecture on AI in the university, and we start really with basics, and we go very, 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 very slow, you know, all the way to the end of it, which is GenAI. And for this year, I think this is not going to work. And I feel my colleagues have to change and bring the newer topics, you know, at more density and faster for those of students interested to learn about GenAI and AI. And also, I think we have to remove lectures in almost all the fields where machine is going to generate answers or give intelligence. So why somebody has to learn calculating complex, let's say, circuits when GenAI is able to do it, you know, within seconds? I mean, it's good to know the basics, but at least what I studied initially, electronics, I had to solve, you know, circuits by hand. So really look at the transistors and simplify it. And I know that it's happening also here in Germany, that you have to really solve complex systems manually. Probably those courses are not valid courses anymore, because now we have convincing machines solving it for us.
Thanks, Hamid. I think we do 2 more questions and then we round it up.
Sure, here. Lucas, my name is Lucas. I have a question more regarding startups in general and the European and the US market. So a lot of startups have a difficult time selling to large enterprises, as we have seen in those numbers. I heard in the startup ecosystem that some of them are turning more to the North American market to sell to clients there. Is there, maybe Nicole, you could answer it best, like, do you see a lot of startups moving to the North American market, addressing clients there to actually start selling, because it's somewhat tougher here to do so?
So I think, I mean, when you look at some of the newer foundation model companies, for example, I would say more radical go-to-market strategies include going to the US, even if some of them are European players. I think they see faster speed, shorter sales cycles, and higher investments. So I think there is a point to kind of going there. I mean, if you need to show those metrics for the next funding round, there is a total rationale there. I think that's a great shame, though, because at the same time, players here are saying, I mean, the reason they're not going on the cloud is because they don't want their data to be sent to the US, but at the same time, we're not really buying from European startups either. So there's kind of like a mismatch there. I don't really understand what's going on. But I think, I think the US markets are just more open and statistically also invest more in those innovative topics. So yes, we see a lot of startups going to the US, but it can also depend on the stage, right? If you're very early stage and you are still working on product market fit, and maybe a large part of your team sits in Europe, it can also be hard to kind of be far away physically, even from the user, especially in sectors where the user interface and so on is really important, where you might want to work more closer to the clients. But yeah, I think that's a dynamic. I'm not even sure this has changed with GenAI that much, to be frank.
I have a question to Axel. So you said that previously startups used to take a couple of years to come up with their products. Nowadays it's rather quick. So my question is, how reliable are those solutions, or stable are they? Are they always in the beta phase, or are they learning along the way? This is my first question. And the second is, are those solutions getting obsolete rather quick by the big players? And then how the startups should tackle with those kind of situations? What do you think?
I hope we got it right. So you were talking about like startup innovations and how sustainable they are. Okay, yeah. So we differentiate between like the takers and the shapers. Yeah? So the shapers are really the ones who create exclusive, original IP innovation, like building a new foundation model. And then they're like the takers. They are rather like building wrappers around like existing models. And if you take that example of like, there were like a bunch of startups that were helping, I think a few months ago, that you could chat with your PDFs, yeah, and you get a summary of PDFs. Yeah. And then suddenly with the next update, OpenAI said, hey, this is now a standard feature in my premium version, yeah. And basically, I don't know, I guess like many of those startups now went out of business because it's like a commodity, yeah. And I think that is what you need to think about, and what I was talking about, like how to find your wedge or your like exclusive way to enter the market and to defend your position and grow in the market. Other than you have like a very smart way of like automizing or augmenting established processes that are across industry. Like if I think of like HR, which is like a perfect example, yeah. So it's like something you can build and reapply. Of course, you need to adapt to the data available in the companies. But this makes it kind of like incredible hard because like going your own way is like the big prize. But it's a very thin line for me, at least right now, to find like these gaps, because all these like attractive markets are very easily also like to be expanded by the existing players. That makes it incredibly hard, and that's, I think, the tough part. Was on the other hand, and I think you brilliantly showed it, like having this conversation with corporate customers, gaining the trust, and then thereby also getting the access to their data and the understanding, and also like this fear of like, oh, there's a black box and I cannot interpret it or I cannot explain it. Yeah, that is the other way and different way of selling. But this is like then co-opetition, so to say, yeah, or cooperation. Whereas the other is really like grabbing new markets and disrupting.
Yes, I mean, I totally agree. I think one thing I have to also clarify here is that this is also effort that we put usually only in large deals, in large enterprise deals. It's usually also, if you ask also from like a sales perspective, it's not applicable to all deals that you do on a scalable basis. But I think in general, like if you sell tech products, it always makes sense to educate. I think that was also a question, how to handle education. That directly also starts in the companies that sell tech applications when it comes to educating account executives, when educating your entire sales team. I think this is core in being and actually succeeding in growth for companies.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you all so much for coming. It was great to have you all here, and hopefully you're going to stick around. And also thank you very much for your input. Thank you for being here. And as I said, stick around, have some snacks if some are left. I hope so. Have a drink. And we hope to see you next time. See you for next study release, for other events of Startup-Verband, Hubraum, Merantix. Thank you so much for participating, and bye-bye.
you.